This right here is exactly why Cowboys fans need to block out the outside noise. This is why you focus on what's happening inside the Dallas Cowboys universe, not the circus of clueless takes coming from the national media. These people, the ones paid big money to talk football on TV, are out of touch, flat out disconnected, and it shows. Time and time again, they remind us that they aren't watching the film, they aren't following the moves, and they definitely aren't in tune with what's actually happening in Dallas. Some of them, they're too rich, too busy, and way too lazy to do the real work, especially the former players. Yeah, they had their moment in the sun, but some of them haven't watched a Cowboys snap in years. They're just spinning old stories, clinging to past glories while the current league flies right over their heads. And now, enter Rob Gronkowski. Yes, he's a Super Bowl champion. Yes, he's one of the greatest tight ends ever. But when he opens his mouth and says the Cowboys had one of the worst off seasons of all time, that's not analysis. That's nonsense. Gronk actually went on air and claimed that the idea of George Pickens joining the Cowboys is somehow a joke. As if adding a dynamic playmaker doesn't shift the landscape. Then he slams the offseason entirely, pretending like one move defines everything. Let's be real. Either he's trolling or he's deep into his usual party mode. Because that wasn't just off, it was reckless. And then he doubles down, saying the Cowboys need to pump the brakes on Super Bowl talk. Seriously? That's the kind of careless talk that drives fans crazy. No context, no depth, just lazy criticism from someone who clearly hasn't been watching what's building in Dallas. We respect what Gronk did on the field. No doubt, he was a monster. But right now, he needs to sit this one out. Because if you're not paying attention to what's really happening in this locker room, on this depth chart, and in this front office, you don't get to talk like you know. Not now. Not about this team. Now look, nobody's ever mistaken Rob Gronkowski for a mastermind of football analysis. Let's be real. He's an all-time great on the field, but off it, let's just say breaking down rosters and evaluating off-season moves isn't exactly his strong suit. And that's okay. Until he starts speaking with authority, like he's been studying film and running front office simulations. The truth is, Gronk is built to dominate between the lines, not dissect rosters on a studio set. But the bigger issue here isn't just what Gronk said, it's the mindset behind it. Because what he's saying, some of our own fans are thinking the same thing. Too many Cowboys fans are staring over the fence, drooling over other teams' grass, without realizing how solid the lawn is right here in Dallas. Let's talk facts. The Cowboys signed 14 outside players this offseason. 14. At least 6 or 7 of those guys are recognizable names. Players with real resumes, real value. They weren't just filler. They were brought in to compete, to contribute, to add depth. And the trades? Those weren't just random flyers. We brought in former first-round picks, guys who were once seen as top-tier talents. Even the depth moves were strategic, aimed at shoring up weak spots and protecting against injuries. All of this before the NFL draft even happened. And if you're looking for weapons, Dak Prescott isn't short on firepower anymore. The front office made sure of that. This team didn't just run it back and hope. They got better. Here's what people forget. This roster has been 12-5 for 3 straight seasons. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen with a weak roster. The problem last year wasn't talent, it was health. Injuries hit hard, and frankly, coaching didn't step up when it needed to. But don't get it twisted. This team is stacked. There are stars all over the field. And now, with the right adjustments, the Cowboys are better equipped to take that next step. Still, let's zoom out for a moment. Because some folks are trapped in this Dallas bubble, missing the big picture entirely. Here's the thing that national voices are completely missing. The guys the Cowboys brought in this offseason. They're not just names on a transaction list. These are real contributors, players who are going to matter when the season kicks off. Let's run it down. Kaiir Elam, a young physical cornerback who could very well be a starter this year. Dante Fowler Jr., a familiar face who brings proven edge rushing ability and depth. Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, two legit running backs with different styles, both capable of starting week 1. One will get the nod, but both will be in the rotation and play a huge role in this offense. And it didn't stop there. The Cowboys added Sadiq Charles and Robert Jones, both starters in this league, to back up the offensive line. That's not just patchwork. That's how you build strength in the trenches. That's how you prepare for a full 17-game war. Then, they brought in veteran leadership at almost every level. Solomon Thomas adds experience to the D-line. Jack Sanborn and Kenneth Murray bring toughness and football IQ to the linebacker room. Even in the backfield, guys like Sanders and Williams bring veteran savvy. And let's not forget, Javonte Williams was once seen as a Marshawn Lynch light before his injury in Denver. And Miles Sanders, he averaged over 5 yards per carry in Philly. Still showed big playability with Carolina, including 30-plus yard bursts last year. The man's not washed. He's dangerous. Yet, if you listen to the talking heads online, the ones who don't really watch, you'd think the Cowboys signed a bunch of practice squad players. They'll tell you none of these 14 outside free agents matter. They'll pretend like it's business as usual in Dallas, like nothing's changed. But let's be clear. This is the most aggressive offseason in recent Cowboys memory when it comes to external additions. 14 outside signings. That's not just rare for Dallas, it's almost unheard of, but the critics still want to dismiss it all. First-round pick? Trash. Former starter? Trash. Solid depth move? Trash. Fine. If these guys are trash, then what does that make the Eagles' offseason? Because Philly didn't retool. They lost key pieces. They lost Brandon Graham, Darius Slay, and a string of proven veterans who were foundational to their recent Super Bowl run. And who did they replace them with? Exactly. Nobody's talking about it, but they should be. Here's what fans need to hear. The idea that any team in the NFC East had a better offseason than the Dallas Cowboys is flat out ridiculous. Let's start with Philly. The Eagles' offseason, a handful of decent moves. Sure, they brought in A.J. Dillon, a respectable depth back, and Azeez Ojulari, who brings some edge presence. Josh Uche is a nice piece too, but beyond that, their signings were underwhelming. A bunch of low-impact names, depth bodies at best. This wasn't a reload. It was a quiet retreat. And yet, some want to argue the Eagles had a stronger offseason than Dallas. No way. Let's look at the Giants. New York flooded their roster with quarterbacks like they were trying to hold open tryouts. None of their additions come close to the top 3 signings the Cowboys made, let alone the overall depth Dallas built through strategic moves across the board. The Giants didn't improve. They scrambled. I've looked at every NFC East team's free agency multiple times this offseason, and not just in passing. I track these moves because context matters. If you want to truly understand your team, you can't just complain about what they didn't do. You have to compare it to what other teams actually did. And when you do that, it's crystal clear. Dallas made the strongest moves in the division. Now let's talk Washington. Yes, the Commanders made a couple of solid additions. Laramie Tunsil is a great get, assuming he stays healthy. Deebo Samuel, a proven playmaker, but in my view, George Pickens has more upside at this point in his career. Washington made respectable moves, no doubt. If we're being fair, they probably had the second-best offseason in the NFC East, behind Dallas. So how does that add up to this being one of the worst offseasons of all time? It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. But then comes another tired narrative, that Dak Prescott can only succeed with an elite running game. Look, nobody's denying that a strong ground game helps, but Dak isn't some quarterback who disappears without it. He's evolved. He's adapted. He's made plays in every kind of game script imaginable. Saying he needs a dominant RB to function is lazy analysis. Yes, it's true. Dak Prescott has historically played well with a strong ground game. That 2016 season? Proof. The Cowboys rushed for nearly 2,400 yards that year, and Dak chipped in with some of his own. The result? A 104.9 passer rating, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, and one of the best debut seasons the league has ever seen. No one's denying that a dominant run game helps. But here's what people like Rob Gronkowski and others are missing. Dak doesn't need it to be elite anymore. Fast forward to 2023. The Cowboys' rushing total dropped to just under 1,900 yards, nearly 500 fewer yards than in 2016. But instead of struggling, Dak elevated. He threw for 4,500 yards, dropped 36 touchdowns, and only had 9 picks. That's 1,000 more passing yards than his rookie year, with less support on the ground. And what did that get him? Second-team All-Pro, MVP runner-up, and another reminder to the league. Dak is not just a system QB, so let's stop pretending that Dak needs a 2,000-yard backfield to function. That argument is tired. It's lazy. It's a subtle way some folks try to knock what he's built. We get it. It's easy to dismiss him. But facts don't lie. And the film doesn't either. Maybe Gronk just missed the entire 2023 season. Maybe he's still stuck thinking about last year's Cowboys. Or maybe he's got one too many hits rattling around up top, confusing old narratives with new realities. Either way, it's time to move on from that outdated take. And for those wondering if Cowboys Nation is still here, let me make it clear. We're still them boys. Always have been. Always will be.